Hey guys, it's 3 o'clock. Welcome to the webinar. I'm excited to get started. How are we doing today? How are my people out there? Everybody doing well? I'll wait. Ernie's doing great. Awesome. So here's how it goes, folks. I don't know how many of you have been on one of my webinar sessions before, but I just pack so much into these that I have to move really quickly to get a lot out of this. Now, that said, my eyes are peeled on the questions box. So as soon as you post something in there, I'm going to see it. My goal for today's session is to keep things like highly energized. I want to move in quickly. Hey, Randy, good to see you. Yeah, this is new. This is just a baby. We're going to see how that works out. So, guys, we've got a lot to cover. I'm going to dive right in here. Now, let's see. I want to explain a little bit about this process that we go through when we're building a webinar. We always create the content based on the types of questions that we're receiving. And then when we have the registration set up, you know how you go to webinar.happygrasshopper.com. Well, as soon as you register, our system asks you to go ahead and tell us something that you'd like to learn. And we collect all of that. It gets automatically popped into a spreadsheet. And then we assemble the top questions, and I'm going to make sure that we get all these answered today during the session. So it's kind of fun. I didn't turn my Ring Central off, and a call's coming in. You guys want to answer it? That might be kind of weird. So here, I'll just reject that call. So all right, so these questions, like how do you define your sphere? Let's start with that. That's a simple, easy question, but I think there's a lot of confusion around it because we say things like sphere, like SOI, as if everyone has a real clear understanding of what that actually means. And I think it's worth taking a moment and just clearly defining what your sphere of influence really is. So like here I am standing in a place in the world, and my sphere, like this imaginary ring around me, it's as large as it needs to be to reach out to all the people whom I have some influence with, right? Now, let's shades of gray here. Let's really define this. So like all my friends at Keller Williams, anybody who's read the MREA from Gary Keller knows the difference between Mets and not Mets. Well, just because you've met someone doesn't really mean you have influence over them, right? It doesn't. So your sphere are the people who are pulled really closest to you. They're the people who, when they get a message from you, go, oh, it's from Randy or Ernie or whoever it might be. They're going to recognize who you are. You have meaning in their lives. Those are the people that you have the most influence over. So your sphere is actually a really special thing. And you should definitely want to adopt a strategy where you're adding more people to your sphere. You're building more and better relationships on an ongoing basis. Now, the next question here is fear. And I'm going to dig into that later in the session. We're going to tackle that. Next one is a pretty straightforward one. How do you document all your meeting notes as you meet with each potential referral source, right? Well, any CRM is going to be capable of allowing you to track that. Of course, that includes my company, Happy Grasshopper. It also includes like your paper notebook that you buy at Walgreens. Okay, you could use almost anything. The important thing is that you use something. Like you've got to have a systematic way, a place to keep track of what's going on with your contacts. That's important. Database organization, we're going to knock that out. How to reconnect after not talking to leads for years. This is actually really simple, right? You've got a little bit of fear if you're hesitant to reach out to those people because you feel guilty. Gosh, I should have done a better job keeping in touch. But you know what? It takes two to really build a relationship. If you've been ignoring them, if they've been reaching out to you and you've just been ignoring it, well, yeah, I feel bad about that. Shame on you. But never let yourself feel bad that you didn't reach out to keep in touch with someone just because you're busy, right? Life is that way. People are generally understanding of that. They're going to forgive you for that. So don't let that fear stop you from moving forward and reaching out with those people in your database. And then, of course, we're going to talk a little bit about the right KIT messages, which for us is short for keep in touch. You've got to, people who know you, you've got to reach out to them. So we're going to cover a lot in today's session, and just like a half a moment of housekeeping here, guys. I'm going to be monitoring the chat. If you need help with anything Happy Grasshopper related, there's the number. It's on the screen for you now. If you are here on this webinar today because you're considering using our services, that's great. Welcome. And yet, this is not a demo of Happy Grasshopper. Like, we're talking high-level things that can work for you no matter what system you're using today. If you're interested in using our system, you should know that we're running out of slots for this month. Many markets around the country, we're starting to see some changes in, and our business is really growing right now. We have a lot of people reaching out to us. So if you want one of those slots that's left, just, you know, let me know in the chat, and I'll reach out to you, or I'll have someone on my staff reach out to you after the webinar. So there we go, right? So let's dive in with some basic fundamentals. Like, before we get to the complicated stuff, we have to own the basic, simple stuff. So that starts with just math, right? We've got to know our numbers. How many leads are you generating on a daily basis, a weekly basis, a monthly basis, right? How many people do you actually have in your database? How many of those leads that you're generating become your client? Like, what's your conversion rate? You've got to have a baseline, and it doesn't matter what it is right now. What matters is that you know what it is right now, so you can measure the new things you're doing against that baseline, right? That's critical. And as you start to own all of these little numbers, your business gets much simpler. Like, your stress level starts to really melt away, because it just becomes like straight addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. It's simple, right? You'll be able to figure out, well, gosh, how many leads do I need to reach my goal? How many people in my sphere of influence do I need to reach my goal? Like, how many people should I really strive to have in my database? And, you know, I'll tell you, like, the simple answer for most of you is going to be 1,000 people. If you can put 1,000 people into a systematic communication process who actually know who you are, right? I'm not talking about those zombie leads that you paid pennies for that aren't going anywhere. I'm talking about people who actually know who you are. If you can get 1,000 of those people assembled into a database, you have a gold mine, an absolute gold mine. So part of what I want to cover today is to make sure that you know how to get access to that gold mine. And I think, you know, I'm a realist. I like to just say things like they are. And we've got to acknowledge that something is kind of stinky right now. I mean, let's just own that. Generating leads today is an easy thing. If you're a real estate agent and you're watching this webinar and you're saying, gosh, I don't have enough leads, they're everywhere, and they're easy to get your hands on. So, I mean, let's just look at some stats here from NAR. In 2011, there were 4.8 million leads generated, or excuse me, sales generated, and 4.5 million leads, right? So more sales than leads. And then we fast forward just to 2017, which that's the most recent data we have here in January of 2019. They're saying that there were 5.5 million home sales, and yet there were 85.5 million leads generated online. Okay, so think about that. If you've been in the business a while, it used to be, oh my gosh, I've got this lead online, and it was a really, quote, good lead. Well, today we've got 81 million more leads and just 700,000 more sales. Like, why? What made that happen? And what happened is companies got really, really good at generating lots of leads online and then selling those leads multiple times. So, you know, NAR tells us that the typical buyer is registering on 10 websites, 10, okay? That means that they're getting all the same content. Like, let's say that half of those agents are using Top Producer. They're getting the same follow-up content, right? Let's say that those agents have an IDX site and those leads are coming from that. They're getting the same MLS search updates arriving in their inbox every day. So there's a huge problem here with this lead situation, because, on the agent side, you guys are just getting worn out. You're like, oh, it's another lead. Great. So what? Like, it almost doesn't matter. And maybe the bigger problem is that you're having trouble really standing out. Differentiating yourself from all those other agents is tough, especially when you're sending the same exact content. And the real negative consequence of this is that it causes your confidence to just kind of drop. That's what's going to happen when you're reaching out and you're not getting anywhere. Like, it's pretty easy to go numb and feel like, oh, it's another lead, but it doesn't really matter. So I want to record scratch here, guys. You need to get that out of your head. We've got to shake that thought away, because as an industry, the need is to really embrace and take care of the client, right? So if you're the lead, you're kind of worn out on agents. And I can tell you firsthand, when I'm shopping for real estate, I'm really frustrated. Yeah, I can register in a lot of places, but can I get someone to call me back? Can I get anybody to reply to me? That's the challenge, right? And worse, all this lead generation with all these agents looking the same, it makes the lead kind of stop seeing your unique and special value. And that compounds, right? I mean, back in the days when the real estate community had the only source of all the data, people had to come to agents for search. Now the data's free, it's everywhere. And so the reason that they have to come to an agent is no longer to find their home. In fact, most people have found their home before they go to an agent, right? So they're looking for you for some very unique and special things, right? So here's how you figure out what those things are for you. This is so simple. Like, ask yourself right now, if your business is primarily based from word of mouth and referral, if that's the case for you, here's what that means. People like you. They do. You're providing great service and value. They're happy to refer you, right? So if you want to create a great impact in converting your leads, you've got to transfer that knowledge from these people who already know you over to those strangers who don't know you, right? Content can do that. So you've got to put the right content in place. Now, the problems continue here a little bit, right? Because the agent, they want and need leads that are ready to close today. They do. And the lead, well, they just want to be left alone until they're actually ready. So, this together, you combine all these things and it's a massive problem. My friends over at the Wave Group, they produced this great report that said the average lead is getting 1.4 phone calls and 2 emails before the agent is calling it dead. And we've got to contrast that data with the fact that the average search begins 8 to 12 months before they're ready to have a transaction. So yeah, there's massive amount of leads that are generated and distributed, but there's a relatively small pool of agents who are actually building relationships successfully with those leads over time. So, let's just touch base here. If you need help with this, we're here for you. Just go to happygrasshopper.com/apply, and you'll be on the line with me or one of the people on my team, and we'll take a look at your business and we'll figure out how to put these dominoes in the right order for you. And those of you, by the way, who haven't been on this webinar, maybe I'm just looking at the count here. We've got a lot more people who are here now than we did when I started right at 3 o'clock. So if you guys don't know me, I'll give you just a quick background. I'm Dan. Hi. I'm the guy who started Happy Grasshopper. I've been on the Inc. list for consecutive years. I'm really proud of the business that we've grown. Unfortunately, as you can see by the video, I'm not this young and handsome any longer. But I've got these great kids. Yeah, that's right. 3 of them. They're awesome. And of course, my wife is just as beautiful as she was the day I met her. I've changed a little bit. Today, I get to spend a good chunk of my time traveling around the country, which is super cool. I love to go out and speak at, crazy places I just never thought I'd get access to. And even more importantly, I love the people that I get to share my life with out on the road. This is just a handful of pictures from my travels last year. I mean, I absolutely love what I get to do. I absolutely love it. And I'm sharing that not because like I want to impress you guys with stuff. I really want to impress upon you that, if I can go from being a waiter who's got like way too much college loan debt to creating the kind of life I have, what's possible for you? I mean, anybody can really find whatever they want through engaging with the right people. It's absolutely possible. So, this is our horse farm. I just feel so privileged to get to live here. And I know for sure that my life and the things I'm fortunate to get to enjoy in my life, it would not be possible without other people. So I'm going to share a quote with you from Harvey Mackay. The quality of your life is determined by the quality of your relationships, and the quality of your business is no different, right? It absolutely isn't. So the challenge is, well, gosh, I mean, it can be tough to build a relationship just as a person. How do you do it as a business? How do you do it as a brand? And, there are some things that can be measured and can be understood, and there's other things where there's a bit more subjectivity, right? There's some art in really figuring this out. So I'm going to combine both of those elements for you and help you see the best way to organize your database so that you can effectively build relationships with all the people in it. So if you're in any business, you have some natural audiences that are already in your database. You're probably just calling them all sorts of other things. So from my perspective, every year I work with thousands of real estate agents, and this is what we see as being the natural audiences inside their databases. You got your past clients in Sphere, right? Sphere of Influence, SOI. They're in green here because these are folks who should be really warm with you, right? They should be a great opportunity. They should absolutely be sending you referral business. They should. And then we've got leads who, of course, may not know you. You have other agents, vendors, and then some of you are interested in recruitment. And, of course, before you can even begin to get things organized like this, you have to start pulling together your contacts from wherever they are. So, let's just clear this real quick because it's not as complicated as you think. Some of you right now are going, oh, I don't even have a database. What good does it do me to organize them? And I'm going to say, yeah, you do. You're just not thinking of it as a database. So your MLS, for example, you can export your past transactions, right? Then you've got a list of names, at least. That's great. And then you can go to your Gmail, your Outlook, or whatever email client you're using, and you can export all of those contacts. And once you've done that, well, then you can merge those two lists. So you've got the names in one, and you've got the email addresses in the other. You can match that up. You've got a more complete database now. Plus, you've got all these other places where your contacts may already be. The challenge isn't so much getting hold of them. The challenge is thinking through, how am I going to communicate with them? Like, that's what should drive the grouping of the way your contacts are sorted in your database. So let's make that part super simple for you. If we look at the whole planet, we've got two groups of people on it. They either know you or they don't. Like, that's it. So let's cover who these people are who know us and people who don't. So, what we see on this slide, we've got 13 ways to grow your database right here. Past clients, open houses, sign calls, prospecting, blah, blah, blah. They're all there, right? There's 13 of them. And these that are bolded, past clients and sphere of influence, they know you. They definitely know you. And the way you communicate with people you know is different. It should absolutely be different than the way you communicate with people who don't. That should be super obvious to anyone who has anyone in their life, right? Because, like, if you're married, if you've got friends and children and neighbors and people who really know you and you pretend that you don't, it's raw and wrong. And, at the same time, if you've got a brand new contact who doesn't know you and you assume too much familiarity with them, that's bad too, right? So just, simple grouping, known and not known, really opens up some powerful ways that you can message these groups. Now, all these other groups here, they don't really know you. Like those open houses, they've met you, sure, they shook your hand, they filled out your sign-in form, but they don't know you. And they don't know that they want to know you. They need content that helps them decide that they do, right? Your sign calls, your prospecting calls, your door knocking. I mean, you're having an opportunity to engage with people, but they don't really know who you are. So again, we need a different communication strategy for those people. So, let's recap here just a little bit. If we've got these two groups, right, they know us or they don't know us, there's only 3 states they can be in. They're ready, they're not ready, or they're never going to be ready to do business with you. Okay. Now that's just the same whether you're a real estate agent or not. No matter what your product or service is, there's really 2 kinds of people in the world, and they're ready, not ready, or will never be ready. And the challenge is that most people are not ready most of the time. They're just not, right? So you must have a communication strategy that makes sense for them for those long periods of time when you're not going to be talking about business, right? I'll give you an example. Years ago, I started a geotechnical contracting firm, and we grew really big and we had a ton of fun. It was an absolutely wonderful period of my life. And the challenge was that the average sales cycle for one of our projects was about 2 years. So, during that time period, I would, I'd have a proposal, and I'd talk to the engineering firm, I'd talk to the property owner, and of course, I'd coordinate with the insurance person who was funding the project. So those are 3 different groups of people that I had to stay in touch with about one project for sometimes years before it was awarded. And it can't just be, hey, I want to touch base about that project, see if there's any progress. That just drives people crazy, right? So you need to have a strategy that shows that you care enough to keep in touch with them that's not about business, right? When you do that, there's a switch in the brain that goes off and it says, hey, I actually would like to get to know this person. Like, they care about me even more than they care about making the sale. So this is a pretty good place to point out something else. There was a question that came in. I saw this in the list. It was something along the lines of, if I have, how do I keep in touch with people? How do I re-engage my clients? How do I call them? How do I connect with them in a way that doesn't feel salesy, right? The obvious answer is you don't sell them anything. It's that simple. So if you've got a list of 100 past clients and you want to keep in touch with them, just keep in touch, right? If you're emailing them, email them something that's got nothing to do with real estate, and then say in the PS line, by the way, if I can help you with anything, let me know. Or even better, PS, I know there are people who'd love to live in your neighborhood. Do you know anyone who's thinking of moving? Right? That's a way you can generate a listing lead, or several of them, just from a PS line. But the reason you're reaching out is to stay in touch. The option at the bottom is to pull the conversation back to real estate. So let's talk about how to grow this database, right? That's one thing that's really important, because now that you've got these different groups and segments, we've got to think about, well, how do we multiply this? How do we make this more? And to do that, we've got some challenges, right? So these same 13 sources that we've talked about are really 13 challenges that need to be overcome. And I like to group them into chunks. So we've got the easy challenge, the cheap challenge, and then we have the free challenge. So easy, like our portals, our IDX leads, like we can spend money today and have leads tomorrow. It's simple. If you want leads, you can buy them. They're out there. There's plenty of places that will take your money and will hit you up with leads. And we catch leads from every conceivable platform, whether it's our buddies at Real Estate Webmasters or Boomtown or Commissions Inc. or Curator or it doesn't matter where they are. What matters is if you're putting the money in, the leads show up, like they're there. That doesn't necessarily mean the business is there, right? It just means that the lead is there. So I would recommend really knowing your numbers and using caution when you're establishing what your lead gen budget is, what your spend is. So Ernie, I love it. So I am looking down. I see these things. My farm is not in Wellington. It's in Odessa, but close. I love Wellington. And Stephen, I see that you're asking me to go back to a previous slide, but I don't know which one that was. So if you want to let me know, I'll let you go back. You can screen grab it. So, these are easy, right? All these lead sources are easy. Let's talk about the cheap, right? Because easy can be expensive. Cheap, right? Maybe it's just going to cost you some time. Maybe it's going to cost you a pie, right? Or a pumpkin at Halloween. But referrals from past clients, that's a great, great source of business. It's probably the best lead you could ever have. And the cost for you primarily is the cost of your time, making sure that you're taking the time to maintain that relationship. I personally love open houses. I know that some people are going to say, well, I'm in a market where they're not conducive, or, I tried it and they just don't work. And, maybe that's the case for you. Although I can say that in 9 years of standing at my desk and helping real estate agents, I've seen this be a very consistent way that people have generated lots of business. And, this should be obvious to most of you, but just to break it down, it's not that you're necessarily selling the home to people who come to the open house. It's that you're building your database, right? You're adding people. They're signing a list. They're using a sign-in form, whatever it might be. You can build relationships with those people over time. And then, of course, I have clients who do things like mega open houses that are just spectacular. One of my favorites, she does this really super cool thing. Like, her primary lead gen is just open houses. And she does it by holding homes open for other agents that are truly special homes. Like, she'll have a luxury property, and she'll have like the local Bentley dealership come out. She'll have a musician playing a piano. She goes all out, and she attracts so many people to come to this great event. And all those people are registering. So she's growing her database, and she's carved out a really nice niche for herself without having to spend a ton of money on marketing. Because as you might imagine, you can zero cost that Bentley dealer bringing a few cars out. I'm assembling a few people at an event I'm hosting at my home, and I wonder if you'd like to be exposed to some high net worth individuals. Oh yeah, they would. Absolutely. They'll be more than happy to stick a couple of sales reps in a couple of cars and hang out at your party. That's easy to get hooked up. So sign calls, IDX leads, valuation sites, social media, these things can be very inexpensive. I'm going to talk about social media for a moment, because like right now, at this particular moment in time, and who knows when Facebook is going to adjust the next algorithm, but most of you folks in real estate should be able to generate exposure, views, right? You should have people for whom your ad is displayed to for about a half a penny a person. That's very, very inexpensive to get that kind of exposure. And I'll give you a few tricks that are useful for that. So maybe you're having an open house and you want to market that on Facebook. Well, instead of just taking a picture, get one of those cameras. They cost you about $100. Samsung makes one that does these 360-degree views, right? And that way, when someone is on Facebook and they've got their phone and they're looking at the house, when they move their phone around, the view changes, right? It's like a virtual reality kind of look in there. That creates massive engagement online. People love to look at that sort of stuff. And the same spend, like you make that post on your page, not your profile, and then you boost it, you're going to get that in front of a lot of people, and they're really going to engage there. That's a huge opportunity for you to get your name out in front of people just in your local community. So that's a cheap thing that you can do. Now, I'm going to jump into, and I see a bunch of questions are coming in. Yes, Karen, there is going to be a replay. I always record these. I always share the recording. And Stephen, the slide showed how to separate the database. Not a problem. Okay, cool. And yes, Matt, I can repeat that script to the Bentley dealer, right? Any vendor. So first you want to use the script with the right person. You can't just call and talk to the receptionist, but you've got to get past the receptionist to the decision maker. So like if I'm calling a Bentley dealership, first, I mean, obviously I'm going to want to have established a relationship, but if I'm cold calling a Bentley dealership to try to get this thing sponsored, I'm going to overcome the receptionist and talk to the right person. And I'm going to do that by saying, hi, my name is Dan Stewart. I'm hoping you can help me. I'm going to be hosting an event for high net worth individuals, and I think that this could be something you'd like to participate in. Who do I need to speak with about that? Right? And they're going to connect you probably to the marketing department. And it should be pretty simple to get them to say yes, provided you're legitimate. I would also suggest popping by, like go and shake hands. I mean, if you want great referrals from people who can afford a Bentley, why not make some friends with people who sell them? Yeah, it's not rocket science. That's a pretty straightforward thing. And again, if you can pull into your sphere of influence people who have access to high net worth individuals, those again are much higher value referrals than others that you might be able to receive. So I hope that helps, Matt. So now we're into the next category. This is the free or nearly free category. So open houses, like free or nearly free, right? You're going to bake some cookies. You're going to pop some signs out. Maybe you're going to spend a little bit on balloons. It's going to cost you your time. Prospecting calls, door knocking. I know this is such a love it or hate it category. I have a client who consistently is taking 8+ listings per month with a stupid easy door knocking script. I'll teach that to you right now. It's just that easy. So imagine I'm walking up to your door. I'm going to knock. And I'm going to say, oh, gosh, I'm so glad you answered. I'm sorry to bother you. Do you have a minute? Because I could really use some help. What do you think they're going to say? Well, gosh, what's going on? What can I do for you? I'll say, well, my name's Dan Stewart. I'm a local real estate agent. And there are people who really want to live in this neighborhood. Do you know anyone who's thinking of moving? If they do, they're going to tell you, right? And that's a non-threatening question to answer, because you're not saying, hey, would you like to know the value of your home? Like, whoa, I don't even know you, dude, and you want that information? But they're happy to say, oh my gosh, yeah, that's a good point. Well, I do know Bob and Sarah down the street, and they had mentioned that they were thinking it might be time to sell, right? So then you get their name and you run down the street and you go, are you Bob? Awesome. I just talked to Fred and he told me that you guys were thinking of selling. Like, straightforward. It's just human. People like to help other people. So, get out there and try it. You will love that script for sure. And of course, those of you who are members, we have that script recorded for you in the help section of our application. So whether you're going for easy, cheap, or free, you have to choose. You have to make a choice here. And the thing that I know is absolutely true for everyone is that there's no one right way to earn a great living in real estate. There just isn't. You could love to be the door knocking guy taking 8 listings a month, or you could hear that and just be like, not in a million years. I would rather just do anything other than walk around and try to strike up conversations and maybe get the door slammed in my face, right? I have a client, love these guys. I went out to visit them in Alaska. Their names are Bree and Ryan Tollefson. And their website, akhomeshow.com, is their primary lead generation source. And, they own SEO in their market. They own it. You can't search for a home in their market and not have them pop up and dominate everything, right? Now, that's not an easy thing. It's not a cheap thing, right? That's an expensive thing that takes a long time to establish. And then once you have it, you really have something that's amazing. Well, not everyone has the talent to really build that kind of an opportunity for themselves over time. So is one more right than the other? Absolutely not. But there's one that your natural strengths gravitate towards. And I believe that our lives are more fulfilled, lower stress, and yes, more successful when we're not fighting ourselves. Like, if you hate the idea of pounding the phone for 2 hours a day prospecting, you probably shouldn't be pounding the phone for 2 hours a day prospecting. Like, straightforward, right? But that's not the problem that most people have. Most people find themselves locked into something I call the cycle of suck. TM, trademark that. The cycle of suck is a pretty real human condition, and you're going to relate to this. So we start with intentions. We believe we can do something. Like, we're going to make it happen. Yes, this time is going to be different. We're going to do it. And so we start to take action, right? We move down that path, and inevitably we encounter a little bit of pain, or maybe a major amount of pain, right? It can really hurt to have someone hang up or slam the door in your face. It can really hurt to spend a ton of money on lead generation and then discover that generating the lead was easy. It's converting the lead that's hard. Like, there's all sorts of ways this pain can show up. And yes, a lot of times it shows up as fear. And, what happens here is like, we've got an intention, we start to take action, we encounter pain, we move on to something else. And then that something else, well, guess what? We have intentions. We have actions. We run into pain, and we repeat and we repeat and we repeat. And then all of a sudden, here we are years later, we look back and we go, why do I keep pounding my head against this plateau that I can't seem to rise above? Well, it's because you're letting your pain or your fear stop you. And we're going to break that up right now. So I'm going to show you a different path. This path is called the path of mastery, and it starts through narrowing, right? By actually doing less rather than more. I want you to consider what your life would be like if you didn't have to do all these things, and you could just focus on a few things, like narrow it down. So we've talked about 13 sources. What if you were to narrow that to 3 or 5 or 2 or 1? Like, do you think you could make more of an impact with a narrowed focus? Absolutely, you could. Now that you've got your focus narrowed, you're not going to take just any action, right? You're going to take measured action. This is the thing that makes the difference. This is the thing that has allowed my life to progress how it has, and this is what I'm 100% confident can do the same for you. We live in a world where you could do anything, and we live in a world where everything is constantly fighting you for your own attention. Your attention is a currency. It's just like cash in your pocket. People want that cash in your pocket, right? You have to decide whether you're going to give it to them or not. So yes, you could be binging Black Mirror, right? Or whatever it is on Netflix right now. You could be doing that. And yet if you are, you're going to find yourself trapped in that cycle of suck. Like, we encounter the pain and then we numb it. Oh, we'll just bump around social media. Oh, we'll do this, we'll do that. Narrowing that focus, taking that measured action consistently over time, that's what produces the predictable results. Like, and I'll break it down for you. Like, I'm totally transparent here about our own numbers. We have a large database. We've really focused on eating our own dog food. We've grown a huge database of people. And I know that with just a few emails, I can assemble hundreds of people into a webinar like this one today. And I know that about 1/3 of the people are going to watch that webinar live. Hi, thank you for doing that. And then another 1/3 are going to watch that webinar as it's recorded. They're going to just watch the recording later. And then I know that final 1/3 is never going to watch it. Like, they saw this, they thought, oh, this will be good, and then they just get caught up in everything else, right? So it's one thing to have the knowledge of what to do. It's an entirely different thing to apply the knowledge. In the path of mastery, you're applying the knowledge. That's what produces the predictable results. So I'm going to break down fear here for you, because I've had some personal experiences in my life that are pretty darn scary. And this has taught me some things about fear that I think you'll be useful. So whether it's reaching out to people you haven't and you feel guilty and that fear is stopping you, whether it's investing in something you think could be good for you, but you're kind of terrified because what if it's not? Whatever your fear is, it exists in 2 categories. There's helpful fear and there's harmful fear. Helpful fear, what's that? Helpful fear often shows up as being startled. Like, if I walk around the corner and there's a snake on the ground, whoa, that helpful fear is going to potentially save me from being bit by a snake. Like, that's helpful, right? We're driving down the road and somebody nearly cuts us off, or, drives in our lane, whatever it is. It could be a tragedy. And that helpful fear, like, our whole physiology is engaged at that moment to give us the ability to avoid a very harmful situation. And of course, fear itself can be very harmful. You know, those feelings of dread, if you're experiencing feelings of dread, that's a dead-end street. I mean, gosh, I can remember times in my life where I would wake up and I would dread the day that was ahead of me. And it's just no way to live. You know, maybe right now there's someone listening to this that's experiencing this at the moment. And if you are, just, you know, reach out to me. I'm like a real dude. I'd be happy to talk with you. Dan@happygrasshopper.com, or you can just call the main office and someone will connect you to me. So you can move past this, right? I've moved past this. You can move past this. Dread and self-doubt are closely connected, and that can create just this stasis that you're not getting anything done. You're trapped in a box and your life just won't get any better until you break through these things. And I'll tell you that I've had some experiences in my life where I've had to really face fear. And I'm fortunate that one of them came to me in my childhood. So I'm a Floridian. I was born in West Virginia, lived there for 2 months. Then I was in Chicago for 5 years, and I've been bouncing around the state of Florida ever since. So this is me on our family boat back in the 70s, right? I'm old now. And we used to go out every weekend. We would go fishing all the time. My father was a power boater, you know, confident. He was a military officer, like a smart guy who knew how to keep us safe on the water. And then one year, his boss had inherited a sailboat, and it needed to be moved from the Isla Mirada area, John Pennekamp State Park, up around the state of Florida, down around the rest of the Keys, and then up the West Coast to Sarasota. So my dad volunteered thinking that this would be a great family vacation. And you know, I'd love to tell you that it looked like this, right? It did not. We sailed out of the port, and my dad's busy figuring out like how to sail the boat. And he ended up ramming us into the reef, which knocked a hole in the boat, and we went down really quickly. So when a sailboat goes down, you know, the keel hits first, and then it leans over on its side. And when the boat was fully submerged, there was just a little bit of the fiberglass that was out of the water. So, you know, the 5 of us were able to stand in this small space, and we're like waving our arms and yelling for help. And there's a constant stream of boat traffic coming towards us. So we think, well, this won't take long. But they keep turning to go around the reef. And the sun is rising behind us, right? So they can't even see us. And we end up spending the whole day. And as the sun is going down, the tide is coming in, and we're running out of the little bit of boat we had left to stand on. So long story short, we nearly did not survive. We spent 2 days waiting to be rescued there. We didn't have provisions. We were horribly sunburned. We were dehydrated. We were like on our last legs. And every day and every night, we saw sharks in the water. I mean, this is a reef, right? It's the largest barrier reef in North America. And the fish are splashing and the sharks are swimming around. And, you know, there were many times where I felt for sure that was it. Like we were just done. And, you know, I put the slide up there, the sense of dread and the sense of self-doubt. I felt dread constantly, because something horrible was coming for me, and I didn't know when it was going to arrive. That's what dread is. It's just horrible. And, you know, I realized that I might die. Like, this could be it. This could be the end. And when you have that level of self-doubt in your ability to survive, you know, it becomes really easy. Like a great gift arrives at that moment in time, because all of a sudden you can see clearly what matters. And it's easy to separate from all the things that don't. So, you know, today, and I'll summarize the end of the story. I know people will ask. We were rescued by the Coast Guard after a dark, fast boat with no lights stopped for us in the middle of the night. So this is South Florida in the late 1970s. We're pretty confident that guy was a smuggler. He wouldn't take us on his boat. He gave us water, and he said he'd send the Coast Guard, and they came and got us the next morning. So we needed a few days for sure to recover from that, and just physically. And then I spent years recovering from that. And, the turning point for me was recognizing that that thing that I once saw was so bad and so negative actually made me a lot stronger. There's nothing that has occurred in my life that's been as scary as that. Like, there's no change in the market that equals a shark swimming around you might come in to eat you, right? There's no competitor that's scarier than those rows of white sharp teeth. There just isn't. So I'm grateful for that experience, and I would not wish it on anyone, and yet I'm really glad that I had it. Now, today, my office is in Safety Harbor, and down at the end of the street, we've got a great marina. And for years, I kept a little sailboat there. And I'm sorry to tell you that my luck with boats was no better than my father's. This is my sailboat. I discovered it this way one day. So sailing apparently is something I just should not do. I should never do that. So key learnings here, right? Key learnings to take away from this is that suffering is a choice. We do not have to suffer. We choose to suffer. Now, that doesn't mean that we won't experience pain. Like, life is painful. There will be painful things that we have to encounter, and yet we don't have to suffer. That's our choice, right? It truly is. So I've shared with you a personal story, and I want to connect that to the idea that we all have our own personal stories. And if we were to take all of those fears, whatever they might be, and boil them down to their single most common element, it would be that we're not enough, right? Whatever that situation is, that we don't have what it takes to survive, or that we don't have what it takes to thrive. And again, suffering is a choice. We don't have to believe that. We don't have to invest ourselves in that. We have the ability to banish that and to shun it from our lives. The question is how? And the way to do that is very, very simple. It's so obvious and straightforward, and yet most people never connect the dots here. I want to connect the dots. I mean, there's somebody who's listening to this right now that's struggling, and this is going to get you past that, right? You get past your fear by embracing your power. That's it. You've got to embrace your power. You see, there's something really magical here, and I know, how do we embrace the power, right? That's the next question. And the way that we embrace our power is to focus on what the truth is, okay? So the truth and the fear cannot exist in the same place at the same time. They can't. I mean, if you imagine, like, my cup here is filled with water. If we call that water fear and I put something else in the cup, they can't both be in there. Like, the fear gets displaced by the truth. So, if you really want to banish your fear, you've got to start by knowing who you are. Assess your strengths. What are you great at? What is the unique, special thing that you can do that other people can't? And you might be saying, well, I just want to sell more houses. I mean, how does all this connect to that? And the thing I'll tell you is that the people I've known in my life who are most successful, it's not that they have a better widget or a better strategy. They have a better reason. Like, they understand who they are. They understand what they can offer, and they leverage all those strengths, right? So again, it's not random action, it's measured action. It's narrowed focus, measured action, predictable results. That's the order. So let's shift now back to the topic of real estate and the sort of things that are possible for you when you follow my advice and you actually engage with the people you've already got in your database, right? Again, step one, you've got to organize it for communication, and then you send messages out. And I mean, I've seen this for years. Like, I finally help someone get their database ready for sending, and they're like, I don't know, what are people going to do? Like, if I send this out, it might not be great. So I've assembled for you some things that are designed to help you get over this. Like, first email, booked 5 coffee appointments from the email. Okay, get over your fear. Go have those appointments. 2 listings after their first blast. First, right? First, 2 listings, hiding there, waiting there. Go get your listings, right? Get over your fear and press send. It's time to do that. I received listings soon after I launched. Like, get over it, get over it, get over it. And I'm not going to beat you up with all these guys because, like, there's too many of them for one. And this isn't about selling Happy Grasshopper. It's about selling you on the idea that people actually want to hear from you, and that great stuff happens when you actually engage with people. Right? My first email went out, 15 responses. My first email went out, 22 responses. I heard from 4 clients from my first send. And we've talked a lot about real estate today, but this is not limited to real estate. You can be in any industry and you have access to take advantage of this sort of thing. So I'm going to encourage you to embrace that challenge, right? Get that database cleaned up and reach out and communicate with people. And I need to give you a little bit more, like, we're so close and yet we haven't gone far enough to where you can really take advantage of this. So let me give you some strategies here that'll be useful for you. You've got to send messaging in 3 phases. So this, by the way, is fully data supported. 9 years in business, hundreds and hundreds of millions of emails sent, billions of dollars in GCI generated. We know for certain that you've got to communicate with people in 3 phases. So however they enter your database, they need to be acknowledged. And they need to be acknowledged according to how they entered your database. If they're a referral from a friend, don't treat them like an IDX lead. Right? If they registered at your open house, don't treat them like they just came in from Zillow. Right? According to the source, you've got to acknowledge them. And then immediately following that, right, these are people who don't know you in this example. You need to position yourself to them. They've got to start to see you as being unique and special and different. So positioning content is what helps you do that. And our data suggests that 3 messages in this area are effective. So we typically send the first positioning message 1 hour after the acknowledgement message. And then the second one goes after 2 days. The third one is after 5 days, right? So that first week, they're being touched from you 4 times. And then we move into a nurturing sequence. So for nurturing, whether they're your past client or your sphere or they're a lead that you've already acknowledged and positioned, our data says that the appropriate frequency to keep in touch with them is once every 3 weeks, okay? That shows the highest open rates and the lowest unsubscribe rates. That's the right time to touch them. I'm a data guy. I love to look into the data. I love to see what's working and what's not working. This is what works. So whether you're, trying to put this all together on your own or whether you're using a different system, this will work for you. So adopt this strategy. It's going to be effective. Now, of course, I would love to have your business, right? I would love for you to be a Happy Grasshopper member. I'd love to help you get great results with our system. And to do that, I need to talk to you, right? So I'm going to ask you to go to happygrasshopper.com/apply. And either myself or a member of my staff, we're going to set aside a good chunk of time. And most of these calls, we spend an hour. And we talk with you about your strengths and your goals. We talk to you about your lead sources and what you're doing to engage with people. And then we build a customized plan to help you achieve your goals. So whether or not you become our member, that call is totally free. So I invite you, please come on and give us a chance to get to know you and help you with this. And now I'm going to jump into some more questions here. Oh my God, Randy, that's awesome. Randy Lemus, longtime client. He says he brought a 3-year agent to his team, set her up with Happy Grasshopper. First email, she generated 7 transactions. So yay, that's awesome. Congrats, Randy. That's truly wonderful. Love it. Let's see here. John. Yeah, I saw that movie. He's saying my story is similar to that Blake Lively movie, Shallows, which, if you haven't seen the movie, she's surfing and she gets stuck on a rock and there's some insane shark chasing her around. Um, there was a moment on the sailboat where it was the end of the first day, and my father took, like, he's trying to figure out where the kid's going to go. Like, I have to keep the kids out of the water because the water's rising. So he cuts some sail and he ties up a little hammock as far up into the mast as he can get it. Remember, the mast is leaning out over the water. So he loads us 3 kids into the little hammock he built, and it's keeping us out of the water. And then he's got my mom on his shoulders, and he has a boat hook in his hand. And I remember peeking out of the little hammock and seeing him standing there with the boat hook. It's like watching something in the water moving around. All we have is starlight, the moon, and he's like keeping his eye on something. And I felt for sure that was it. I'm sorry, guys. I don't know why I'm telling you all this, but yeah, fear is a real thing, and I'm glad I'm not Blake Lively. I wouldn't look that good in a bikini for sure. So let's see. More questions. What kind of follow-up or nurture program tips do you implement with listing clients where their house did not sell and expired? I'd love to help them sell later on when they decide to sell again. Okay, so Matt, I'm assuming that you're talking about calling the withdrawn or expired lists, and maybe you're getting this from the Red X or whoever it might be. There's lots of sources for that data. You probably pull it directly from your MLS. So I recommend first calling them, and you go through that call script and you get their permission to send them email. You don't want to just bombard them just because you can. That won't be effective. They're likely feeling like, my agent didn't do a great job for me. Sometimes those folks whose listings expired have a little bit of a chip on their shoulder. So you're going to want to send content to them that's useful, that shows you care enough to keep in touch without, hey, let me list your house again, and that's also helpful. So I'm going to give you a hypothetical example. In your market, there are unique things that are happening right now. I don't know what those things are, but let's say you just found 3 homes that were comparable to those that sold above the listing price it was listed at previously, right? That obviously is a no-brainer reason to reach out to them. Well, what if you're seeing that the trend is going downward, right? That's also a reason to reach out to them, because if they really need to sell, it'd be better to sell now than later down at the bottom of the trough. So in every case, I would try to show up in their inbox as a human who cares, as a human who wants to actually help them with the problems that they have. So let's see here. Kathy. Kathy's asking, can you briefly explain the position touches in the prior screen? The position touches. Okay, positioning. I'm with you. So let's think of it from this perspective. Let's imagine that you're a buyer's lead. Think of what's in your inbox right now. And also look at the data. NAR says if you're a buyer's lead, you're registering on an average of 10 sites. So you're likely getting IDX search updates and price change alerts from multiple agents. You're getting Realtor.com and Zillow coming, saying, come back and search for another house. Like, that sort of stuff is in your inbox all the time. And the data also shows that you're likely 8 to 12 months from a transaction when you first started registering in places. So positioning content is designed to help you stand out. Because if you're that buyer's lead, imagine, I get another email from Kathy again, and it's telling me, okay, price change alert again, and I'm not ready to pay attention to that. And I get another one tomorrow and the next day, and every day, months go on. Pretty soon, I'm ignoring everything that you're sending. So our content is designed to complement the fact that that content is already being received by these people. It's designed to kind of change their expectation by really helping them see what's unique and special about you. And like, I'll give you a couple of examples here. I'm not going to show a message on the screen. I'll just describe it to you. So I have a client in the Houston market that does a lot of work with oil and gas engineers. One of their lead sources is a corporate relocation link that's distributed to ExxonMobil people who are in their MOVE program. So we know a lot about that lead, right? Knowing the unique lead source is important. So we can acknowledge that lead in a different way. And then knowing that the reader is likely to be an engineer, we can make some decisions about the kind of content that they should get. So a strategy that I love from that particular message is we're leveraging the engineer's desire for data to produce a conversation for the agent. Because isn't that what it's all about? You need to have a conversation. Just, a click doesn't really do anything for you, but when you're talking with someone, you're much closer to getting to a contract. So this message would include the importance of data. One of the things I try hard to do for my clients, or like, I'm not writing copy right now, but to give you an idea, we're going to really stress the importance of having the right data. The data helps you make a good decision. And of course, I have the data, right? So raise their curiosity, leave that curiosity unresolved, and they'll be very likely to reach out with you. So another example of positioning content. I have a client who sells a ton of lakefront property. That's her ideal client. She loves to sell lakefront homes. And so we position her as a lake expert. And we do that by sharing pictures of her out on the lake fishing, like holding up a massive fish, right? We let the reader understand that, oh, this isn't just another agent. This is an agent who truly understands the sort of property that they're looking for. Now, it's possible that there are people listening to this right now who are saying, well, I don't know about the whole ideal client thing because I just need any client. And that's okay. Maybe you're newer in the business and you haven't figured it out yet, or maybe you've been in the business a long time and you've just kind of settled into the pattern of, oh, whatever comes, I can handle it, whatever kind of business it is. Well, I would say that, that's opportunity for you because your life can be more enjoyable. You can have greater levels of success and prosperity by narrowing that focus. So, maybe you want to sell to high net worth individuals, right? Maybe you want to be the family move up expert. Like, whatever it is doesn't really matter. What matters is that you know it, your focus is narrowed, and then you put the strategy in place to support that. So I hope that answers that question. Let's see here. Matt should have clarified about the expired listing when it is your own clients that expired. Aha! All right. So yeah, let's talk about that. And let's kind of cast that situation. I can imagine what that must feel like, Matt. You had a great listing appointment. They signed on the dotted line. And, maybe you swallowed hard and yeah, they wanted to list for more than you thought they should, but you figured they'd be flexible and then they weren't. Maybe there was a little animosity between you guys at the end. Hopefully not, but the way I'd follow up with that person would depend on how I wrap things up with that person. If they feel like I can't be trusted because I just had every opportunity to do everything right and I just didn't, well, gosh, I'm going to have a completely different approach than I would if it was just a market condition related thing. And, I very much am comfortable saying, hey, the market is what the market is. Like, we cannot control the market. What we can control are the decisions we make about how to market a property within those market conditions. So I'm going to give you my very best advice based on what we know about the market. And I'm going to do everything possible to give you the service that's going to result in you achieving your goal. Like, that's it. For me, boom, black and white. I can do that every time. I can't create magical market conditions to let someone get, 10% or 20% more than their home should actually sell for. And I'll say that in many markets around the country, we have clients who do exactly that sort of thing, just because their markets that, like, there's no inventory. The moment they get a listing, they stick it in the MLS at a price point that's a little below what they expected to sell, and they just watch it get bid up. So in every circumstance, the details make the difference there, Matt. So the way that one wraps up would determine absolutely how I'd continue to communicate with them. So let's see, guys. I'm looking at the clock. We've gone a little bit long. It's 4:05. I'm happy to hang out and answer any other questions that you may have, of course. So if they come in here, I'll answer them, definitely. And I'm scrolling back in case I missed any. So let's see what we've got here. All right, that looks like I got all of them. Oh, here's another one. All right. Oh gosh, you're so welcome, Matt. Happy to help with that. Absolutely. And of course, I'd be happy to speak with you as well. If you need to book a call, you've got the link there on the screen. So I'll tread water here for a moment and just see if any other questions pop in. A couple of things that are coming here that I'm really excited about. So we still have, I'd say about 70% of the audience that we started with here. So I'm going to let you guys in on some secrets since you're my diehards that are here to the end. So in the second week of February, we're pushing the largest fundamental changes to Happy Grasshopper that we've ever pushed. So it's a major UI UX revision. So the look and feel of our application is going to be significantly upgraded. And we're adding some things in the back end that are going to make the rest of the year super exciting for us. So the thing to look for, if you're our member, you'll see that we've got this super robust API that connects with everything. We've had that. And we're adding a custom field component that will let us leverage that API in a whole bunch of new ways. So, whatever data points you want to track on one of your clients, we can track. And then we're expecting in the second quarter to release some massive upgrades to our system that are going to include SMS, print, voicemail blast, and integration with Messenger. So, our mission as a company, my mission as a human being, is to connect the world in conversation. Like, everything happens in conversation. We fall in love in conversation. We're educated in conversation. We sign peace treaties in conversation, right? And we also do minor things like close every transaction in conversation. So I want to create more of them. I want to create better conversations. And I'm fully committed to expanding our footprint beyond email into all the methods of communication that allow us to do that. So lots of big, exciting stuff ahead. And let's see here. Oh, awesome. Thank you, Stephen. Yes, Randy. Yes, absolutely. Dashboard tracking for sure. And you are dying. I hope you're dying in a good way. You put in all caps letters, OMG, exclamation point, and you did that as a full-grown man. So I assume that's an amazing thing. Awesome. So yeah, there's a lot coming, guys. It's going to be a very exciting year for us. And Stephen, we'll just reconnect. That's easy. You've got the link there, and when you go, you'll be able to see my calendar there as well. So I'll look forward to that. All right, guys, I have treaded the water. I have answered your questions. I've given you lots of scripts. I've given you lots of structure. I've shown you exactly how to take hold of this database monster and make sure that you're ready to really capitalize on it. And now the ball is in your court, right? It's up to you to take what you've just learned and actually apply it. It's up to you to take that cycle of suck and just push it away, right? Embrace that path of mastery, right? Narrow your focus, take measured action, and you will get those predictable results. That's how the world works. Everything you want, everything you can imagine for yourself is within conversations you haven't had yet. Let's start those conversations. Have a great afternoon, everybody. Bye now.